I still remember that day when I signed the contract at the city hall. Ryan sat across from me, wearing the dark blue suit I bought him for his birthday last year. He said at the time that it was too expensive and unnecessary, and now he is wearing it to divorce me. The agreement was spread out on the table, and I glanced at the last page. My signature column was still empty. He didn't rush me, he just looked at his phone. There was a message from Victoria on the screen. I didn't see the content, but I saw the note name. The name she saved in his address book was VH, without even an emoticon. It was as clean and neat as a business contract. I was holding the pen he handed me, and suddenly I felt very funny. Why are you laughing? He didn't even raise his head. This pen, I said, is the same pen you used on the day you proposed. He finally looked at me and frowned, as if he was disturbed by an outdated pop-up window. Yeah, he said, I forgot. I've known Ryan Walker for 12 years. I've known him since he was writing code in front of 3 monitors in his Stanford dormitory. At that time, he had no suit, no IPO, and no Victoria Hale. All he had was a broken school bag, a pile of instant noodle boxes, and a girlfriend who brought him coffee at 3 o'clock in the morning every day. That girlfriend is me. Now the girlfriend is sitting across from him, holding the pen he handed over, ready to sign her name and end the 7-year marriage. 7 years. Do you know what 7 years is? 7 years is enough for a startup to move from a garage to an office building and go public from scratch. 7 years is enough for a brand planning genius who graduated from Wharton to become a housewife with no income, no social life, and no value. At least in Ryan's eyes. Emily, he finally put down his phone and spoke in the tone of a board meeting. You are not a good fit for my future. Not our future. It's his. When he said this, his tone was as calm as if he was reading a quarterly report. He didn't even look at me. His eyes fell on a certain wall behind me, probably thinking about the schedule to meet Victoria later. I will start the IPO process next month, he said. I need a wife who can enter the capital circle. Victoria can bring hundreds of millions of dollars in resources. This is not a relationship issue, it is a business issue. It's not an emotional issue. It's a business issue. I chewed these 2 sentences over and over in my mind, like chewing a piece of tasteless gum, trying to find even a trace of guilt or hesitation in them. But no. He looked at me the same way he looked at the angel investor who refused to give us our first investment 7 years ago. You are no longer useful in my narrative, you can leave. Being a housewife for 7 years, he added, as if he was making a deduction on a list of assets. You have no source of income, no social circle, and no value in the capital circle. Emily, you know the rules of this circle, you should be able to understand it. I should understand. What he said is correct. I once did understand the rules of this circle. Before marrying Ryan, I was the youngest director of brand planning at Carter & Associates. I rebranded 3 Fortune 500 companies and led projects with budgets greater than Ryan's first-year revenue. But that was all before. The next thing is, I married him, he said. We need a complete family. I quit my job, had a baby, and devoted all my professional abilities to running the Ryan Walker's Wives brand. I helped him plan every investor dinner, remembered the birthdays of every partner's wife for him, comforted him backstage when something went wrong at his product launch, and got him up at 4 a.m. to make hot cocoa for him during the 3 months he suffered from insomnia. On those nights when he had sleepless nights, he held me and said, Emily, what would I do without you? Now he's sitting across from me telling me I'm not a good fit for his future. I stared at the pen and suddenly thought of something. Ryan, I said, my voice calmer than I intended, what if I say I'm pregnant? His hand paused. Just that moment. That pause was less than a few tenths of a second. Then he took his hand back, put it on the table, and looked at me. Are you pregnant? I didn't answer. He waited 2 seconds and then smiled. Not that kind of warm smile, but that kind of smile like you heard a joke that wasn't very funny but didn't want to be rude. Emily, he said, if you were really pregnant, you would tell me the first second you walked in. You would use it as a bargaining chip, and you would use it to fight for better conditions. You didn't tell me, which means you didn't. He was right. I didn't tell him. It's not because I don't want to, it's because I found that when he said you are not suitable for my future in that tone, I suddenly didn't want him to know. I don't want this child to become a clause on the negotiation table, and I don't want my child to be born in a marriage that reluctantly stayed because of pregnancy. And I'm afraid too. I'm afraid that after I say it, he still doesn't want me. In that case, I won't even have the last bit of dignity left. So I picked up the pen and wrote my name on the signature line. Emily Carter. It's not Emily Walker, it's Carter. The Walker I had used for 7 years turned back into Carter at this moment. After signing, I put the pen down and watched him sign his part. His hand was steady as any business contract. I closed the agreement, stood up, and asked one last question. Ryan, what if you fail? He looked up at me with something almost pity in his eyes. I have seen that look when he rejected an unreliable entrepreneurial project and when he told an intern, you are not suitable for our company. I won't, he said. I pushed my chair back and picked up my bag. I bought that bag myself, using the last bit of money I saved before getting married. For 7 years I have been reluctant to change it because it was my own thing. Good luck with your IPO, I said. I hope Victoria is worth the price. When I turned around and walked out, I heard him say something behind me, but I didn't hear it clearly. Or maybe I don't want to hear it clearly. When I walked out of the city hall, it was raining outside. It rarely rains in Los Angeles, but it did that day. I stood on the steps, looking at the rain curtain, and suddenly felt a little pain in my stomach. I pressed my hand on my lower abdomen and took a deep breath. It's okay, I told myself. You can do it alone. The phone rang. It was a message. It's not Ryan's, it's an unknown number. Emily Carter? I'm Daniel Brooks. I heard you're back. Can I meet you? Daniel Brooks. I haven't seen this name in about 10 years. If you've ever seen a video on YouTube titled Insider Secrets of the Capital Circle, you'll probably know this name. Founding partner of Brooks Capital, the most successful investor under the age of 40 on the cover of Forbes, and recognized in Silicon Valley circles as the most difficult Jew to mess with. But in my memory, he is none of these things. In my memory, he is the boy who always sits in the last row of the classroom at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. He wears black-rimmed glasses and has a small dinosaur pendant he got from nowhere hanging on his school bag. He would listen carefully to everyone during group discussions, and then just when you thought he wasn't listening, he would suddenly say something that would make you rethink the entire plan. We used to know each other very well. In my sophomore year, we collaborated on a brand planning project and won the championship in the National Business School case competition. He invited me to dinner that night, in a very ordinary Italian restaurant, and he said, Emily, you are the smartest person I have ever met. I thought he was going to confess. But he didn't. He just looked at me, smiled, and said something very strange, so I won't let myself stand in your way. Later he went to New York and I went to San Francisco, and we never contacted each other again. Occasionally when I see his name in industry news, I will be stunned for a moment and then tell myself that that was a long time ago. Now he appears. The day I signed the divorce papers and stood in the rain with a baby in my belly. I didn't reply to him right away. I put my phone back in my bag and walked down the steps. The rain hit my face, it was cool and made me feel alive. I walked to the parking lot and got into the car, the Toyota I bought 7 years ago. Ryan had long since exchanged it for a Tesla, but he said, this car can still be driven, there is no need to exchange it. Now that I think about it, he is not saving money, he is saving everything related to me. I started the car and the air coming out of the air conditioner was cold. I adjusted the temperature and waited for a while, but it was still cold. Just like those 7 years. You think you are slowly getting warmer, but in fact, you never really get warmer. I responded to Daniel's message, when? He replied instantly, now. Send your location and I'll come and pick you up. I looked at the screen and suddenly smiled. It's not because you're happy, it's because, you see, even a person you haven't seen for 10 years cares more about where you are now than your recently divorced husband. But I didn't ask him to pick it up. I said I would go there myself. He sent an address, a very quiet Japanese restaurant in Santa Monica, not the kind of internet celebrity restaurant, the kind that requires reservations. When I arrived, he was already standing at the door waiting. He has changed, and he has not changed. What has changed is that he is no longer the boy wearing black-rimmed glasses. He was wearing a dark gray cashmere jacket with a white shirt underneath, no tie, and the cuff buttons were silver and very clean. His hair is shorter than before, and his face has something that belongs to this circle, not arrogance, but a calmness of I know how much I am worth. What hasn't changed is the little dinosaur pendant on his school bag. No, that's not right. Of course he doesn't have a bag. The pendant hung from his car key. I noticed that he put the car keys on the table, and the little dinosaur pendant was hanging next to it. The hair had been worn a little bald, but it was still there. He saw me coming and his eyes paused on my face. I knew what he was looking at. My eyes were probably red, my makeup was probably smudged, and the jacket I was wearing was from Uniqlo. In a place like Santa Monica, in front of the partners at Brooks Capital, were Uniqlo. Emily, he said, you've lost weight. It's not, are you okay? It's not, I heard you got divorced. It's you've lost weight. It's like something an old friend would say. The standard body shape of a housewife who has been a housewife for 7 years, I said, don't worry about it. He smiled and pulled out a chair for me. After sitting down, he didn't rush to say I'm here to help you or I know your current situation. He just pointed at the menu, told the waiter, 2 of the same, and then turned to look at me. When was the last time you had omakase? He asked. I thought about it. About 4 years ago? When Ryan got his first Series B financing, he treated the team to a meal. But I was taking care of the children that day and didn't eat much. He nodded without saying anything sympathetic, nor did he show that your ex-husband is really nothing expression. He just pushed the teacup in front of me and said, then you have a good meal today. We sat in silence for a while. He looked at his phone and I looked out the window. The rain is still falling, and the beach in Santa Monica is no longer visible, only a gray patch. Then he said something that stunned me. Ryan's IPO will not happen. I turned to look at him. He didn't look at me, his eyes fell on the teacup, as if he was saying something certain. How do you know? I asked. Because I was doing due diligence. He said, there was a problem with his company's financial data. I put down the teacup, and my heartbeat suddenly accelerated. Not out of concern for Ryan, well, maybe a little, but more out of a gut feeling I'd had as a branding genius, that something wasn't right. Daniel, I said, you asked me out not just because you heard I'm back, right? He finally looked at me. That look was exactly the same as in the Italian restaurant 10 years ago. Serious and gentle, but there is something underneath that I can't see through. Emily, he said, I want to ask you to come back to work. I was stunned for a moment. What to do? What you did before. He said, brand planning. There are 12 companies in my portfolio, and they all need people like you. Not a housewife, not someone's wife, but yourself. He paused and added, go back to where you belong. Get back to where you belong. This sentence was like a needle sticking into a place in me that I thought was dead. Not the heart, but something deeper. It's the Emily who got straight A's at Wharton, the Emily who became the brand director at the age of 23, the Emily who once thought I will change the world. That Emily has been dead for 7 years. In other words, 7 years of sleep. Now someone said in her ear, wake up. My eyes got hot, but I held back. I picked up the teacup and took a sip. The tea was hot, burning from my throat to my stomach. You know I just got divorced, I said, and I almost said I'm pregnant. But I didn't say it. It's not because I don't trust Daniel, it's because I'm not ready to turn this news into information yet. Anyone who has been in the capital circle knows that information is bargaining chip. And I've been a bargaining chip for too long. And you need time, he finished for me, I know. I'm not in a hurry. But I will reserve this position for you. He stood up, took out a business card from his pocket, put it on the table, and pushed it next to my teacup. Find it out and come to me, he said, no matter how long it takes. Then he paid the bill and when he walked to the door, he looked back at me. Emily, he said, that year at the Italian restaurant, I said I wouldn't stand in your way. Now I regret it. Before I could say anything, he turned and walked into the rain. I sat where I was and looked at the business card. Brooks Capital, Daniel Brooks, managing partner. The paper is a thick handmade tissue paper that feels textured, like the growth rings of a tree. I put it in my bag with the divorce papers. One ends and the other begins. As I drove home, the rain stopped. The rain in Los Angeles is like this, it comes and goes quickly, just like some people's feelings. Home. The word has become sarcastic now. The house where Ryan and I lived for 5 years was in Palo Alto, with 4 bedrooms, a garden, and a swimming pool. I used to think that was my home, but now I know that it was just one of Ryan Walker's assets, and I was just an accessory to that asset. When I moved out, I only took my clothes and my the children followed him. He said that children need a stable environment and that I currently do not have the ability to provide a stable environment. He's right. A woman who has no income, no job, and lives on the sofa at a friend's house cannot provide a stable environment for her children. So I signed that custody agreement. Visitation rights, every other weekend. That weekend was the first weekend without kids. I went back to my friend's house, my college roommate Sarah, one of the few people I still keep in touch with in this city. She works as a real estate agent in San Jose and has a vacant guest room in her home. She said, you can stay as long as you want. I lay on the bed in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about today. Divorce. Pregnant. Daniel. And Ryan's last look. I won't. He will not fail. He never fails. His life is like the codes he wrote. Every variable is within his control, and every result can be accurately calculated. But are people variables? Am I a variable? I rolled over and put my hands on my belly. You can't feel anything there, it's only 6 weeks old, not even a bump. But I knew there was a life there, a life that was half mine and half Ryan. Should I tell him? No. At least I won't tell anyone until I'm sure the child is safe. I can no longer let this child become a bargaining chip, and I cannot let her be born in a story of being left behind because of pregnancy. I want this child to be born in an I want you story. If that story doesn't exist, I'll write one myself. When I woke up the next morning, I had 17 missed calls on my phone. All the same number. Ryan's lawyer. I called back and the other party told me in a very businesslike tone, Mrs. Walker, no, Miss Carter, according to the divorce agreement, you need to move out of the Palo Alto residence within 30 days. In addition, Mr. Walker hopes that you can pick up the personal belongings you left in the garage within this week. Personal items. I left it in the garage. 7 years. After 7 years of marriage, they were finally classified as personal belongings and placed in the garage. Okay, I said, I'll get it. After hanging up the phone, I sat on the bed and was stunned for a long time. Not because I was sad, but because I suddenly realized something in Ryan's world. I have never been alone. I am a function. A function that provides stability when he needs a stable rear, a function that provides care when he needs to take care of his children, and a function that can be replaced when he needs a wife who can enter the capital circle. Function does not require emotion, function only needs to be upgraded. Now, he has been upgraded to Victoria Hale 2.0. I turned on my phone and searched for Victoria Hale. The search results made me gasp. Her Instagram has 800,000 followers, and her profile reads Hale Capital Partners, investor, philanthropist. In the photo, she is wearing a white Chloe dress, standing on a yacht, with the Monte Carlo coastline behind her. Her smile was perfect, her teeth were gleaming white, and her hair was blown by the sea breeze, like a frame cut out of a shampoo commercial. Scroll down, there are all these photos. Charity dinner in New York, World Economic Forum in Davos, Allen & Company annual meeting in Sun Valley. In every photo of her, she stands next to a certain big shot, smiling just right, not too close, not too distant, that subtle sense of distance that I know him very well but I won't take advantage of this relationship. The comments section is full of words like queen, goal, and rich girl goals. But I stared at those photos for a long time, and I always felt like something was wrong. It's not the wrong kind of she stole my husband, so I don't like everything about her. It's a more professional intuition, a sensitivity to artificial characters that I cultivated when I was doing brand planning. Her photos are so perfect. The lighting, angle, and composition of each photo are as precise as if they were calculated. It's not the natural feeling of I took it casually but it happened to be beautiful, but the shrewdness of I know this photo will be seen by 800,000 people, so I have to control every pixel. And there is also a problem with her circle of friends. The photos of her with those big guys were either captured from a distance or part of a group portrait. There are very few intimate photos that say, I have a close personal relationship with this person. There are a few photos of her and Ryan, but they only appeared in the past 3 months at a certain technology summit, at a certain private dinner, at a certain golf event. 3 months. Ryan only started to frequently appear in the same scene with her 3 months ago. And our marriage started to go cold 3 months ago. I didn't think any further. I didn't know who Victoria Hale was at the time, but I just felt like something was wrong. That feeling, like when you smell a hint of smoke but can't find the source of the fire, you know something is burning but you don't know what. I put down my phone, got up, brushed my teeth, washed my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. The eyes are swollen, the lips are dry, and the skin is dull. I haven't done much makeup, skincare, or bought new clothes in 7 years. All my energy was devoted to being Ryan Walker's wife, and now that position has been eliminated. I picked up the comb, combed my hair smoothly, and tied it into a ponytail. Then I did something. I opened Sarah's dressing table, took her foundation, concealer, eyebrow pencil, and lipstick, and applied them all on her face. My hands were a little shaky at first because it had been too long, but halfway through applying it, my muscle memory came back. Cover the dark circles with concealer, use foundation to even out your skin tone, draw a clean arc on your eyebrows, and apply a thin layer of bean paste color on your lipstick. After I finished applying makeup, I looked in the mirror for a long time. The person in the mirror looks a bit like Emily Carter 7 years ago. Not that housewife, but the Emily Carter who argued with clients in the conference room, convinced everyone at the proposal site, and wore a little black dress and held champagne at industry annual meetings and chatted and laughed with people. I took a deep breath. I'm back, I said to the mirror, although I don't know how long I can last. That afternoon, I went to the house in Palo Alto to pick up personal belongings. When the garage door opened, I saw my stuff, 3 cardboard boxes, a suitcase, and an old backpack I'd had since college. 3 cardboard boxes. 7 years of life were packed into 3 cardboard boxes. I opened the first one and inside were clothes. The clothes I wore before marriage, business clothes, dresses, high heels. Ryan didn't throw them away, he just moved them from the closet to the garage. In the second carton are books. My books on brand planning, marketing classics, and a few leisure books I bought in college. The pages were a little yellowed, but I opened one of them and saw the notes I had written on the margins. The handwriting was small and dense, with the kind of ambition that only young people have. The third carton contains miscellaneous items. Some old photos, a few letters, a USB flash drive. I picked up the USB flash drive and looked at it. It was a backup of my project when I was at Carter & Associates. I loaded the 3 cartons into the car and was about to leave when I heard someone talking behind me. Emily. It's Ryan's voice. I turned around and saw him standing at the door of the garage, wearing a white t-shirt and casual pants, holding a cup of coffee in his hand. He looked fine. No, he looked better than the last time I saw him. His face has the luster of a founder who is about to go public, and his eyes are full of confidence and ambition. You're here, he said, as casually as if he were greeting a neighbor. Come get my stuff, I said, pointing to the 3 cardboard boxes in the trunk. He glanced and nodded without saying, sorry, that's all, or let me know if you need anything. He just stood there, drinking his coffee, like he was waiting for me to say something. I didn't say it. I closed the car door and prepared to get in the car. Emily, he called me. I stopped and didn't turn around. I heard Daniel Brooks was looking for you, he said. My back stiffened. The news is pretty quick, I said. The circle is not big, he said, with something indescribable in his tone, not jealousy, not worry, more like confirmation. What does he want from you? None of your business, I said, pulling open the car door. Emily, he added, Daniel Brooks is not who you think he is. I finally turned to look at him. What kind of person? I asked. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he just shook his head. Forget it. I'm just reminding you. Remind me of what? Remind you, he looked at me, with something I couldn't read in his eyes. No one is free in this circle. After that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing alone in the garage, holding the door handle in my hand. I got in my car and drove out of the neighborhood I'd lived in for 5 years and never looked back. But in the rearview mirror, I saw Ryan standing at the door of my house, holding coffee and looking in the direction I left. That image reminded me of him standing in the same place 7 years ago, watching me walk into the house for the first time as Ryan Walker's wife. At that time he smiled like a child and said, "Welcome home." Now he was watching me leave with no expression on his face. Maybe this is what he really is. A person with no expression at all. And it took me 7 years to see this clearly. Over the next 2 weeks, I did 2 things. The first thing, I went to the hospital to confirm my pregnancy. 6.5 weeks, everything was fine. The doctor asked me, will my father accompany me to the next prenatal checkup? I said no. The doctor looked at me and didn't ask any more questions. Second thing, I contacted Daniel. Not because I want to prove anything, or because I want revenge on Ryan. It's because after 2 weeks of lying in the guest room of Sarah's house, I found myself going crazy. Not the kind of heartbroken kind of madness, but the kind of I obviously have the ability to do one thing but I didn't do anything kind of madness. I scroll through my phone every day, reading news about Ryan's company, looking at Victoria's Instagram, and looking at those comments where someone said, Ryan Walker and Victoria Hale are simply a magical couple in the capital circle. Every time I see this, my stomach churns, not with envy, but with a feeling of I've been wiped out. It's like you were deleted from the photo, but everyone tells you you were not in this photo. I needed to do something to prove I am. So I called Daniel. I want to work, I said. He was silent for 2 seconds, and then said, come to the company tomorrow. Brooks Capital is on Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park. If you don't know what Sand Hill Road is, it has the highest concentration of venture capital firms in the United States, with a higher density of capital per square foot than any neighborhood in New York. As I drove there, I passed several corporate buildings that were owned by clients I had worked for. There is a logo on one building that I designed 7 years ago. Now it's still there, still on, telling everyone this company is worth so much money. I designed it. It wasn't designed by Ryan Walker's wife, it was designed by me, Emily Carter. The thought made me tighten my grip on the steering wheel. Daniel's office is on the 6th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the entire Sand Hill Road. When I entered, he was on the phone. When he saw me coming in, he raised his hand and motioned for me to sit down. After he hung up the phone, he handed me a document without any greetings. "Look at this," he said. I opened it and found a brand strategy briefing. A company that specializes in AI medical care has just received Series A investment from Brooks Capital and needs a complete rebranding plan. "You have 2 weeks," Daniel said, "to come up with the first version." I looked at the file and then at him. "Aren't you afraid that I will become unfamiliar?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands behind his head, and smiled. "Emily," he said, "there are some things you never forget. Like riding a bicycle. He paused, like after you've been hurt by someone, you still recognize what's good." I don't know if he is talking about me or himself, but after that, I started working. For 2 weeks, I buried myself in the information. Read the company's technical white paper, watch the founder's interview video, analyze the competitor's brand strategy, and draw a concept sketch of the first version of the visual plan. I work 12 hours a day, and sometimes I stay in the office until late at night. The security guard knocks on the door and says, "Ms. Carter, the building is about to be locked." Then I pack up my things and leave. Daniel never pushed me or asked about the progress. He just put a cup of coffee and a latte on my desk every day, unsweetened, 2 strengths, my favorite way to drink in college. He remembers. 2 weeks later, I stood in the conference room of Brooks Capital, facing the founding team of the AI medical company, making my first proposal. Daniel sat in the corner without saying a word. I spoke for 30 minutes. From the refining of the brand's core values, to the design logic of the visual system, to the phased execution of the communication strategy. I crammed all the pent-up creativity, all the wasted professional abilities, all the ignored intuition and judgment of the past 7 years into these 30 minutes. After finishing speaking, the conference room was quiet for about 5 seconds. Then the founder, a Chinese woman in her 40s named Dr. Lin, looked at me and said something that almost made me cry. She said, "You understand us better than any agency we have found." I smiled and said, "Because there is someone behind me who knows how to invest." I glanced at Daniel. He was writing something in his notebook with his head down, but I saw the corner of his mouth curl up. That night, he invited me to dinner. "It's the same Japanese restaurant, it's still omakase. Your proposal today," he said, picking up a piece of tuna belly, "is the best I've seen in years." "Thanks," I said, "but I have a question." "What? Why are you looking for me?" He put down his chopsticks and looked at me. "Because you're the best," he said. "It's that simple. It's not because of you I hesitated, it's not because you have anything to do with me Emily," he interrupted me, his voice calm. "I'm not going to deny how I feel about you. But that's not why I came back to you. I am looking for you to come back because you need to come back and I can provide this position." He paused and then said, "As for the rest, that's your own decision." I wouldn't trade my job for anything. I looked into his eyes, trying to find a hint of hypocrisy or calculation. But I didn't find it. Maybe it's because I'm too tired, maybe it's because I really want to believe him. But I choose to believe him. It's not because of naivety, but because a person who can remember your coffee drinking habit in college, can remember what you said in an Italian restaurant 10 years ago, and can hang a bald little dinosaur pendant on the car key for 10 years, such a person is at least not a liar. Scammers don't spend time on these details. Scammers will only make a fuss about big things, such as hundreds of millions of dollars in resources or a wife who can enter the capital circle. My first month at Brooks Capital was like learning to breathe again. Go to the office every morning, turn on the computer, read emails, reply to messages, hold meetings, make plans, communicate with founders, and connect with designers. These things are like muscle memory for me. I know what to do as soon as my hands are on the keyboard. But there are some things that are new. For example, I find myself sharper than I was 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I did brand planning, relying more on intuition and creativity. But now, after 7 years of marriage, I have gained something more, an insight into human nature. I can tell whether a founder is lying from the micro-expressions in his speech. I can smell something amiss from the numbers in a financial presentation. And I can tell the true anxiety of the company from the editing rhythm of an interview video. These are not learned from books. This is the ability only those who have been let down have. Daniel noticed. Once he called me into his office and closed the door with a serious expression. "Emily," he said, "I need you to do me a favor." "What?" "I have always had people do the due diligence of Ryan's company. But there are some things that I need someone who really understands brand strategy to look at." He pushed a document in front of me. "I'm not going to ask you to do anything that makes you uncomfortable," he said, but if you're willing to do it, your perspective might be the missing piece for us. I looked at the document and it said Walker Technologies due diligence report on the cover. I turned it over. The first page was Ryan's company's shareholding structure, the second page was the financial summary, and the third page is a brand value assessment report. I glanced at it and discovered the problem. Who made this report? I asked. Third-party agency, Daniel said. What's wrong? There is a problem with its data source. I pointed to one of the lines. Look at this user growth curve. The data it quotes is provided by the company itself and has no third-party verification. And this growth model, in the SaaS industry, is impossible to achieve unless there is a major technological breakthrough. I turned to the back and pointed out a few more issues. The calculation method of this brand premium is also wrong. It uses a model of the consumer goods industry, not an enterprise-level service model. This difference will overestimate the brand value by at least 20%. Daniel looked at me and his eyes changed. It's not the kind of gratitude that says, you helped me a lot. It's the kind of confirmation that, I really saw you right. Emily, he said, do you know what you're doing? I was stunned for a moment. Help you do the due diligence? No, he said, you are helping me discover a problem. This problem may be bigger than we thought. He closed the file, looked at me, and said something that sent shivers down my spine. If Ryan's company falsifies its brand data, will its financial data also have problems? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and my mind was filled with those numbers and curves. If Daniel's guess is correct, and if Ryan's company really falsified its financial data, then his IPO will not be successful. It's not just impossible to succeed. It's something big will happen. Financial fraud in the capital market is not wrong but a crime. SEC investigations, shareholder lawsuits, criminal charges, jail time. These words popped up in my mind one by one, like those moles in the playground that can never be finished. You press this one and that one pops up again. I shouldn't care. He used me as a tool, he replaced me, and he didn't even ask what will you do next on the day of the divorce. But I have his child in my belly. This child should not have been born into a father is in jail story. I picked up the phone and scrolled to Ryan's number. His fingers hovered above the screen, hesitating for a long time. Then I locked the screen and put the phone back on the bedside table. No. I can't make this call. It's not because I don't want to help him, it's because what would he think if I called him now and told him there may be a problem with your financial data? He'll think I'm vindictive. He will feel that I am using Daniel's information to threaten him. He will feel that I am still the Emily who can't live without him. I don't want that. I don't want to be a person who needs to be protected in front of him again. I rolled over and put my hands on my belly. Baby, I whispered, your mom is having a hard time right now. But she'll figure it out. There was no movement in my stomach. It's only 10 weeks, of course not. But I felt a kind of warmth, spreading from the palm of my hand to my lower abdomen, as if someone was responding to me. Maybe it's just psychological. Maybe not. The second week, things started to speed up. Daniel's team dug deeper into Ryan's company's financial data and discovered more and more problems. It's not just brand data falsification. There are also issues with the timing of revenue recognition, disclosure of related transactions, and may even involve inflated revenue. This is not an ordinary financial radicalization, Daniel said at the internal meeting, his expression serious. This is systematic fraud. And he glanced at me and hesitated. And what? I asked. Besides, it's not like Ryan could design this model alone. I was stunned for a moment. You mean someone helped him? I mean, Daniel pushed a document to the center of the conference table. The structure of this fraud is very complex, involving multiple layers of nested shell companies and complex capital flow paths. This is not something that a CEO with a technical background can do by himself. This requires we need professional traders, I answered. The conference room was quiet. Everyone is looking at me. Emily, Daniel said, did you think of something? Victoria Hale comes to mind. The investor and philanthropist with 800,000 fans. The woman in the photo who always stands next to the boss but never too far or too close. The woman who came into Ryan's life just 3 months ago and quickly replaced me. I need to check on someone, I said. Who? Victoria Hale. Daniel looked at me and said nothing. But I saw a glint in his eyes, the kind of glint a hunter gets when he sees the trail of his prey. Over the next 2 weeks, I used my spare time from work to start researching Victoria Hale. At first I thought it would be difficult. For internet celebrities with 800,000 fans, their information should be everywhere. but the real information is often buried in retouched photos and carefully arranged copywriting. But I have an advantage that others don't have. I used to be a brand planner. I know where the seams of a human being are. In the first week, I discovered the first problem: Victoria Hale's educational background. Her LinkedIn said Harvard Business School MBA, but I checked the Harvard Business School alumni database. There was no such person. Maybe she goes by the maiden name? I looked up her maiden name. Every possible spelling variation of her, nothing. I checked the list of Harvard Business School graduates again, and from 2005 to 2015, in every class for 10 years, there was no one named Victoria Hale. I started to think something was wrong. The next week, I discovered a bigger problem: her investment experience. She wrote on LinkedIn that she served as a managing partner at Hale Capital Partners. This company sounds very high-end, with Hale in the name, like her family's fund. But I checked the registration information of this company. Hale Capital Partners, registered in Delaware, was established 18 months ago. It is not an established family fund, but a shell company that has just been established for a year and a half. The sole shareholder of the company is a trust registered in Wyoming, and the beneficiary of the trust is an offshore company registered in the Cayman Islands. The shareholder information of offshore companies is not public. This is a standard black box structure. Structures that rich people use to hide their money. But Victoria is not a rich person. She is someone who needs to look rich. I keep digging. In the third week, I found a post in an internal forum in the financial industry. The post was made by an anonymous user, with the title, "Is anyone working with Victoria Hale? Please be careful." The content of the post is very short. This woman claims to be the heir of the Hale family, but I checked and there is no such person in the Hale family at all. All her backgrounds are fake. Her investment mode is, get close to the founder, guide the company to carry out high-risk operations, and then suddenly disappear at a certain point in time. Our company was almost cheated by her. Everyone is advised to do a thorough background check before working with her. The date of the post is 2 years ago. There were warnings 2 years ago, but no one listened. Because Victoria Hale's personality is so perfect, with perfect education, perfect family background, and perfect social network. In this circle, people are more willing to trust a person who seems right than a person who is proven wrong. Just like Ryan. He would rather trust a woman who can bring hundreds of millions of dollars in resources than a wife who has been with him for 12 years. Because resources are visible, but companionship is invisible. I took these materials and walked into Daniel's office. I put him on the table. Victoria Hale is fake, I said. Her entire background is fake. Her family foundation is a shell company. Her Harvard MBA is fake, and her hundreds of millions of dollars in resources. I paused. Her hundreds of millions of dollars in resources may not even exist. Daniel finished flipping through the information and raised his head to look at me. His expression was complicated. There was shock, there was anger, but more of it was an annoyance of I should have thought of it a long time ago. "Emily," he said, "do you know what this means?" "Meaning Ryan was scammed," I said. "It's not just that he was cheated." Daniel stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at Sand Hill Road. If Victoria is a liar, then Ryan's company's financial fraud may not have been done by Ryan himself. It was Victoria who induced him to do it. I was stunned. "You mean I mean," Daniel turned to look at me, "Ryan might not be the mastermind. He might be a victim, too." This thought was like a basin of ice water pouring down from the top of my head. If Ryan is the victim, so what should I do? That night, I didn't work overtime. I drove to the beach, parked in a Santa Monica parking lot, and looked at the Pacific Ocean. The sun was setting, and the sea surface was dyed orange-red, as if someone was burning. I picked up the phone and looked up Ryan's number again. This time, my hesitation was shorter. I pressed the dial button. The phone rang 3 times and I picked it up. "Emily?" Ryan's voice sounded tired, completely different from the high-spirited Ryan at the garage door 2 weeks ago. "Ryan," I said, "I need to talk to you." "If it's about Daniel Brooks." "No," I interrupted, "it's about Victoria Hale." There was silence on the other end of the phone for about 10 seconds. Then Ryan said something that broke my heart. "Emily, I don't know what to do." Ryan never said, "I don't know what to do." In 12 years of being together, he was always the one who had the answers. No matter what problems he encountered, code bugs, financing difficulties, team conflicts, product delays, he could always find a solution, even if that solution was sleep first and talk about it tomorrow. But now he says, "I don't know what to do." The sound was very light, as if it would be blown away by the wind. "Where are you?" I asked. "The company," he said, "the office." "Wait for me." I hung up the phone, started the car, and drove to Palo Alto. 40 minutes later, I arrived downstairs at Ryan's company. That building is in downtown Palo Alto, with glass walls and a huge logo in the lobby. That logo was designed by me 7 years ago. The blue lines are intertwined to form a W shape, representing Walker and we. Ryan said at the time, "We are more important than I." The logo is still on, but the company is about to collapse. I got on the elevator and reached the 6th floor. The corridor was dark, most of the lights were turned off, and only the office at the end was lit. I walked over and the door was open. Ryan sat behind his desk with a pile of papers spread out in front of him. His shirt was rumpled, 2 buttons at the collar were undone, his hair was messy, and there were deep dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he had aged 10 years. "Ryan," I called him from the doorway. He raised his head to look at me, his eyes distracted, and it took him a few seconds to focus. "There you are," he said, his voice hoarse. I walked in and sat down across from him. I took a look at the pile of documents on the table, the SEC's investigation letter, the lawyer's letter, and the investor's withdrawal notice. "It's worse than I thought. The IPO was stopped," he said, as if stating a fact that had nothing to do with him. "Investors withdrew their capital, the board of directors asked me to resign, and the SEC is investigating financial fraud." He paused and looked up at me. "Victoria is missing. 3 words. Gone. It's not broken up, not left, it's gone. It's like the world has evaporated. Her phone calls are out of reach, her social media feeds have been wiped out, and her apartment in Menlo Park, which she calls her temporary home in Silicon Valley, has been rented out. The property manager said she checked out last week and left nothing behind, not even the trash. Every trace of her has been erased," Ryan said. "It's like she never existed." He covered his face with his hands. "Emily, I'm done." When I looked at his appearance, I felt an extremely complicated emotion surging in my heart. Not pleasure. Definitely not pleasure. I don't know how to describe it, a mixture of "I told you so" and "but I don't want to see this happen at all." I wanted to say "I told you there was something wrong with her background," but I couldn't. Because saying such words at this time has no meaning except making him more painful. "Ryan," I said, "I need you to know something." He looked up at me. "Victoria is not a person," I said, "she is a team. A systematic fraud team. Their operating mode is fake backgrounds, get close to startup founders, guide the company to commit financial fraud, and then disappear with the money." I looked into his eyes and said word for word, "You are not the first, and you will not be the last." Ryan was stunned for a long time. Then he started laughing. Not the kind of happy smile, but the kind of smile that a person can do nothing but laugh when he realizes that everything he has spent 12 years building is built on sand. "So," he said, "I didn't lose the company, I was lied to from start to finish." He looked at me, and something suddenly welled up in his eyes, not tears, but something deeper than tears. "Emily," he said, "you asked me the day we got divorced, what if I failed? I said I wouldn't." He lowered his head and his voice was almost a whisper. "I failed." I reached out and took his hand. Not because I still love him. It's because at this moment when all his rights have become wrong, he needs someone to tell him, "You have not been abandoned." Just like 12 years ago, when he was writing code in front of 3 monitors in the Stanford dormitory until he collapsed, I handed him a cup of coffee and said, "You can do it." But now, I can't say "you can do it." Because he really can't. "Ryan," I said, "do you have a lawyer?" He nodded. "Yes. But he said that the fact of financial fraud is difficult to refute. The data is true and the signature was signed by me. Whether it was induced or not, the responsibility lies with me." "What about Victoria's team? Have you told the lawyer about Victoria?" I said it. But the lawyer said that being cheated on by my girlfriend is not a legal defense. I was silent for a while. Then I made a decision. "Ryan," I said, "I'm not going to fight your case. I'm not going to testify, and I'm not going to help you find connections." He looked at me with a tired "I understand" look in his eyes. "But," I said, "I won't step on you." I stood up, walked to the door, and looked back at him. "The decisions you made replacing me, using me, treating me as a tool, were your choices. No one forced you. Victoria did not force you, the Capital Circle did not force you, and the IPO did not force you. You chose that path yourself." He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but nothing came out. "So," I said, "I'm not going to save you. But I'm going to watch you suffer the consequences. Because that's what you really need, not someone to solve your problem for you, but someone to tell you, you messed up and you have to deal with it yourself." I walked out of his office. When the elevator door closed, I heard him call my name in the office. "Emily." I didn't look back. When the elevator reached the lobby, I walked out and passed by the logo I designed 7 years ago. The blue lines intertwined to form a W shape. We is more important than I. But what if there's no you in we? What if that we is just an I in disguise? I walked out of the building, and the wind outside was blowing cool. I took a deep breath, and the air had the unique smell of Palo Alto, eucalyptus, coffee, and a little bit of the embers of ambition. I took out my phone and sent Daniel a message. I need to talk to you. About the acquisition of Ryan's company. He replied instantly, tomorrow morning, in the office. The next morning, I arrived at Daniel's office. He is already waiting for me. There are 2 documents on the table. One is Ryan's company's due diligence report, and the other is a letter of intent for acquisition. Daniel, I sat down and spoke directly. I have a condition. He looked at me and said nothing. In acquisition negotiations, I will not use my status as ex-wife to lower the price. I'm not going to go to the negotiating table and say, I know where his weaknesses are, or I can get him to accept any terms. Daniel leaned back in his chair and folded his hands behind his head. Emily, he said, do you have any idea how much more we might be paying if you didn't take advantage of this status? I know, I said, but I don't care. Why? Because if I use my identity as ex-wife to lower the price, then I will be no different than when he used his identity as husband to take advantage of me. They are all using a relationship to gain benefits. I looked into his eyes. Daniel, the purpose of my coming back is not to become another Ryan Walker. He was silent for a long time. Then he laughed. That smile was exactly the same as in the Italian restaurant 10 years ago. Gentle, serious, with a sense of relief that I've finally waited for this day. Emily, he said, you know what? Those words you just said are the sexiest things I have ever heard in my life. I was stunned for a moment, and then laughed too. Daniel, can you be more serious? I'm serious, he said, pushing the acquisition letter of intent in front of me. Okay. I promise you. Purely business negotiations. You don't need to be ex-wife. You just use the identity of Emily Carter, brand planning expert. He looked at me and added, that's who you really are. Takeover talks are set for 2 weeks. In the past 2 weeks, things have moved faster than anyone expected. Ryan's board of directors formally accepted the SEC's investigation, and the stock price fell from its peak of $42 per share to $3. An investor class action lawsuit has been filed and a criminal investigation is ongoing. Ryan's personal assets have been frozen. His house in Palo Alto was repossessed by a bank and his car was towed away. He's now living in a friend's guest room in San Jose, exactly like the first month after my divorce. Ironically, we stayed in the same city, but in different rooms. Victoria Hale still has not been found. Her team seemed to have melted into the air, and all traces had been cleaned up. The FBI is involved in the investigation, but so far, there has been no progress. Daniel's company is the only organization still negotiating with Ryan's company for acquisition. All the other investors ran away, and only Daniel was still at the table. This is not charity, Daniel said at an internal meeting. The technology of this company is good, but it was just screwed up by the management. If we can acquire it at a reasonable price, peel off the financial fraud part, and leave the core technical team, it is a good business. He glanced at me. Moreover, we need someone who truly understands the brand value of this company to handle the integration. Everyone is looking at me. I nodded. I'll do it, I said. On the day of the negotiation, I wore a black suit jacket, white shirt, black trousers, and a pair of 3-inch high heels. I bought this set of clothes with my first month's salary, not Ryan's money, not a gift from Daniel, but my own money. When I walked into the conference room, Ryan was already sitting across from me. He wore a gray suit and tie and was clean-shaven. He looks a lot better than he did 2 weeks ago, not in the I'm fine kind of good, but in the I know what I'm going to face and I'm ready for kind of good. His lawyer sat next to him, a white man in his 50s with a serious expression, as if he was attending a funeral. I sat next to Daniel and across from Ryan. Our eyes met. He didn't shy away. Me neither. Negotiations lasted 3 hours. Daniel's team proposed an acquisition plan to acquire the company's core assets, including technology patents, customer contracts, and R&D teams, at a very low price. It does not include debts, historical liabilities, or anything related to financial fraud. Ryan's lawyers objected, arguing that the price was too low and not in the interest of shareholders. You come and go, bargaining. I didn't say much. I'm waiting. Wait for that moment. That moment has come. At 2:15 in the afternoon, when discussing the valuation of brand assets, Ryan's lawyer said something. The valuation of this brand should be higher. It's recognition in the market. No, I started. Everyone looked at me. I stood up, walked to the projection screen, and opened the PPT I had prepared. Ryan Walker's personal brand and the company's brand are highly bound, I said. After the financial fraud scandal was exposed, the brand's awareness is indeed high, but it is negative. A founder who is investigated by the SEC, and a company accused of financial fraud, its brand value is not a positive number, but a negative number. I turned to the next page, which contained data from a consumer survey. We conducted 300 questionnaires, and the results showed that after learning about the financial fraud incident, 78% of potential customers said they would definitely not consider Walker Technologies products. Not only does this brand have no value, it is also generating negative value. I looked at Ryan. His expression was calm. No anger, no grievance, just listening quietly. So, I said, our bid is already a premium to the market price. It's not because its brand is worth this price, but because its technology is worth this price. And the value of the technical team has nothing to do with Ryan Walker himself. When the last words were spoken, the conference room was quiet for about 10 seconds. Ryan's lawyer opened his mouth to say something, but Ryan held his hand down. That's enough, Ryan said. He stood up and looked at me. Emily is right, he said. The brand is my problem. No, the brand is my fault. He looked at Daniel. I accept your terms. Daniel glanced at me and I nodded slightly. Deal, Daniel said. The lawyers began to organize documents and pack things. People in the conference room left one after another, and finally Ryan and I were the only ones left. He sat on the other side of the table and looked at me. Emily, he said, I understand now that I didn't lose the company, I lost you. I stood on this side of the table, looking at him from a distance of 3 meters. Ryan, I said, you didn't lose me. You never chose me. His eyes were red. You chose me back then, not because you loved me, but because you wanted to win. Daniel quit, not because he didn't love me, but because he respected my choice. And you my voice was shaking a little, but I held it in. You won me, not by love, but by competition. You just wanted to prove that you were better than him. And me, I'm just the trophy. Ryan lowered his head, shoulders shaking slightly. Emily, I'm sorry, he said, his voice almost breathless. Don't say sorry, I said. I'm sorry is the most useless word in the world. What you have to do is bear the consequences. Face the SEC investigation, face the court, and face everything. You should face. Then, when you come out the other side, stop treating anyone like a tool. I picked up my bag and turned towards the door. Emily, he called after me. I stopped but didn't turn around. That day, the day of the divorce, you said you were pregnant. Is that true? My hands tightened around the straps. I turned around and looked at him. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face had the expression of a man who had lost everything and was looking for the last bit of something. Yes, I said, it's true. He froze. Then his tears finally fell. Not the kind of silent tears, but the kind that made the whole body tremble, the kind that had been suppressed for a long time and finally collapsed. I have a child? He asked. You have a child, I said, but the child is not your bargaining chip. Not your lifeline. It's not an excuse for you to avoid responsibility. I looked into his eyes. Ryan, if you really want to be a father, you first need to be a man who can face his own mistakes. I walked out of the conference room. In the corridor, Daniel was leaning against the wall waiting for me. He looked at me and said nothing. You heard everything? I asked. He nodded. Are you angry? I didn't tell you. He shook his head. Emily, he said, this is not my business. This is your business. It's your right to tell me or not. He paused and then said something that surprised me. But I want you to know that no matter who this child is, I will be by your side. Not because I want to save you, but because you deserve to be supported. I looked into his eyes. There was tenderness and determination in those eyes, but there was no oppressive feeling of I want to possess you. Daniel, I said, thank you. But I don't need anyone around. What I need is me to stand on my own. He smiled. I know, he said, so I won't stand in your way. He said exactly the same thing as 10 years ago. But this time, he didn't turn around and leave. He stood there, waiting for me quietly. And I walked towards him. Not to pounce on, not to rely on, but to stand side by side. We walked out of the building side by side. 6 months later, I'm sitting in an office in Menlo Park with a contract in front of me. It's not an acquisition agreement, it's not a divorce agreement, it's a partnership agreement. Daniel separated the brand planning department of Brooks Capital and established a new company, Carter Creative. I'm the founder and CEO. I signed my name. Emily Carter. Not someone's wife, not someone's ex-wife, not someone's daughter, not someone's mother, although I am. That's Emily Carter. After signing, I put down the pen and touched my stomach. 34 weeks. The little guy kicked in the stomach, as if to say, come on, Mom. I laughed. You think this is cool too, right? The phone rang. It was a message. Posted by Daniel. Congratulations, CEO Carter. Treat you to dinner tonight? Omakase? I replied with one word, okay. Then he added, but this time I'm treating you. He responded with an emoji, the little dinosaur emoji. I laughed out loud. A press conference is scheduled for the next day. I stood on the stage, in front of more than 30 media reporters. The light hit me, which was a bit dazzling, but I didn't hide. Carter Creative's positioning is very clear, I said. We don't do traditional brand consulting. What we do is founders' brand reconstruction. Especially those founders who are undervalued, ignored, and treated as accessories. I paused and glanced at the audience. Daniel sat in the front row, next to Dr. Lin and several clients I had served. I am not accomplished by anyone, I said, I just finally chose myself. Flashbulbs crackled. I smiled and put my hand on my stomach. The little guy kicked again. This time, it's not Mom, come on, it's Mom, you're right. 3 months later. I was in the delivery room of Stanford Hospital for 7 hours and finally brought this little guy into the world. It's a girl. He weighed 6 pounds and 20 tails. And cried loudly. The nurse said, this child's lung capacity is really good. I hugged her, looked at her wrinkled little face, and cried. Not the kind of sad cry, but the kind you finally see that you have created a life, and this life belongs only to you from the first second. Daniel was waiting outside the delivery room. When I let him in, he was holding a bouquet of flowers, not roses, but daisies. White, small, and very quiet. He glanced at the child in my arms and then looked at me. What's her name? He asked. I thought about it. Hope, I said, Hope Carter. Hope. Not because she is a hope, but because she is my choice. I chose to bring her into this world, I chose to face it all alone, and I chose not to be attached to anyone. Daniel nodded and placed the flowers on the bedside table. Hope Carter, he repeated, sounds good. He paused, then said, Emily, I know you said you don't need anyone by your side. But I still want to say, if you want, I want to be by your side. Not because you need it, but because I want to. I looked into his eyes. In those eyes, there was no arrogance of a savior, no eagerness of a pursuer, only something very quiet and certain. Daniel, I said, give me time. Okay, he said, as long as it takes. 2 years later. Hope is 2 years old. She can run, jump, call Mom and leave my papers everywhere in the office. Carter Creative has grown from 1 person to a team of 15, serving more than 20 startup companies and winning 3 industry awards. Ryan's case was decided a year ago. He was found guilty of 2 counts of financial fraud and securities fraud and sentenced to 4 years in prison. He's in federal prison now, with 2 years left. He writes me a letter every month. It's not the kind of letter seeking for reconciliation. It's the kind of letter where he is reflecting. In his first letter, he wrote, Emily, I finally understand now that I didn't lose a wife, I lost someone who was willing to endure hardships with me. In his third letter, he wrote, every day I think about what I would do if you told me you were pregnant that day at City Hall. I thought I would keep you. But now I know I won't. I will use that child as a bargaining chip. Because at that time, I only had eyes for myself. In the 5th letter he wrote, thank you for not saving me. If I had been saved, I would never have understood this. I didn't reply to his letter. But I read each one and put it in a box with Hope's birth certificate. I'll show it to her when she gets older. Tell her, your father made a lot of mistakes, but he finally learned to face them. As for Daniel, we are together. Not the kind of grand, need to be announced to the world together kind of thing, but the kind of thing where he would put a latte on my desk every morning, no sugar, 2 strengths. Every weekend he would take Hope to the park and let me sleep in. Every time I worked late, he would drive to pick me up with the song we listened to in college playing in the car. We're not living together, we're not getting married, there's nothing we should be doing. Just 2 independent people who choose to be together. One night we were walking along the beach in Santa Monica. Hope straddled Daniel's neck, grabbing his hair and giggling. Daniel, I said, have you ever thought that if you hadn't quit back then, think about it, he said, but it was wrong. Why? He stopped, took Hope off his neck and held her in his arms. The sea breeze blew over and Hope's hair floated up. She stretched out her hand to catch it, but when she couldn't catch it, she smiled. Because at that time, he said, we were not complete enough. You were incomplete, and I was not complete. If we were together at that time, either I would save you, or you would be attached to me. Either way, it would not last long. He looked into my eyes. The sea breeze ruffled his hair, but he didn't fix it. But now, he said, you are complete. He paused and smiled. I'm still on the road to becoming complete. But at least we don't need each other to complete ourselves. We just choose to stand together. I looked at Hope in his arms, at Hope's hand holding his hair, and at the moonlight reflected in his eyes. Daniel, I said, I want to tell you something. What? I choose you. He was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed. That smile was exactly the same as it was in the Italian restaurant 15 years ago. Gentle, serious, with a sense of relief that I've been waiting for this day for a long time. I choose you too, he said. Hope giggled between us, reaching for a hug. I picked her up and the three of us hugged each other. The sea breeze from Santa Monica carries a salty smell. On the distant sea, the moonlight shattered into pieces of silver, as if someone had scattered a handful of stars on the sea. Epilogue Federal Penitentiary, California. Ryan sat in the cell with a small TV on the table in front of him. This is a common area TV that has an hour of broadcast time every afternoon. News is playing on the screen. Emily Carter, founder of Carter Creative, delivered a speech at an industry summit in San Francisco today, announcing that the company's valuation exceeded $500 million. The scene cuts to Emily. She stood on the stage, wearing a dark blue dress, her hair tied up, and her face had the kind of calmness that only someone who has truly taken control of their own life would have. Her belly swelled slightly, she was pregnant again. This time, it's Daniel's child. I was not made successful by anyone, Emily said on the screen. Her voice was calm and firm. I just finally chose myself. Ryan looked at the screen and shed tears. This time, it wasn't because of failure. It's because, for the first time, he truly understood her value. It's not what she can do for him. It's not how many resources she can bring. It's not whether she can enter the capital circle. Her value is that she is a complete person. A person who doesn't need anyone to define him. A person who was already the opposite of a tool when he treated her as a tool. He covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. The inmate turned over on the bed next to him and muttered, "Brother, are you okay?" He didn't answer. He just remembered one thing. 15 years ago, on the Stanford campus, a girl handed him a cup of coffee and said, "You look very handsome when you write code." At that time, he thought that he won this girl because he was smarter, more ambitious, and more competitive than Daniel. But now he knows. He won only because the girl chose to believe in him. And he never cherished that trust. The news on the screen continued to play. Ryan raised his head and looked at the woman he once had and then pushed away with his own hands. She smiled. That smile was exactly the same as it was on the Stanford campus 15 years ago. Only this time, that smile wasn't for him. It's for the person who finally chooses to stand by her side. Ryan turned off the TV. The cell fell silent. Only the small window on the wall let in a beam of light. The light fell on the ground, on his hands, and on the mark left by his wedding ring that could no longer be taken off. He closed his eyes. Then, for the first time, he was truly quiet.